The Yankees are coming out hot in week 4 with a couple of young stud starting pitchers on the waiver wire, as are the White Sox with a major prospect call-up that you need to know about.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast. I'm Dominick Martino, riding solo today, and the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast is now part of the number one sports podcast network, which is the Locked On Podcast Network. And thank you to our everydayers and new listeners for making us your first listen each and every day. Matt and I are longtime fantasy baseball analysts, and between the two of us, there is over 40 years of fantasy baseball knowledge, and we do this podcast to share it with you. Wherever you watch and or listen, please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. It helps to grow the podcast, and we truly do appreciate it. And listen, we're at it again, week 4. I can't believe 3 weeks are already in the books. And if you're, an everydayer, you already know how we do things around here on, these waiver wire episodes. And if you're, a first timer around here, or a new listener rather, we appreciate it. And the way that we do things, I'm going to start off at the top with some starting pitchers that you need to add to your team. This is a must-add waiver wire episode, if I didn't already say that. And then we're going to finish up with some bats, right? And then in the middle, we got a little bit of both, to keep it covered here. So I'm going to start off, I said the Yankees, have been kind of rocking and rolling here of late. And I got a couple of pitchers that might be available on your waiver wires that are a good reason why. I'm going to start off with Ryan Weathers. And a lot of mixed results from Weathers in spring training and, in his first and second start. But his last start on April 9th was just dominant. 8 innings, 7 strikeouts, 1 earned run, and 0.88 whip against the Athletics. Really, really good stuff there from Weathers. And his next start is coming on Tuesday against the Angels. So as you're hearing on this on Monday, you most likely still have the chance to pick him up and stream him in there, which is great. Weathers is actually only 28% owned on Yahoo. Doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, because why is Weathers down 7% over the last couple of days on Yahoo? When he had a great last start and his next one is against the Angels. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but hey, it is what it is. Weathers' numbers on the season through his first 3 starts: a 2.81 ERA, a 1.38 whip, which isn't great, but 16 innings and 18 strikeouts. Weathers has the stuff to be really good. He's just not super consistent. The underlying stuff, it's 3 starts. I don't really want to rely too much into it, especially when one of Weathers' 3 starts was really atrociously bad. It was only 3.2 innings in his second start against Miami. We're not really going to lean into that. Like I said, Weathers has pretty good stuff. He's getting good movement on the pitches, which is kind of what you want to see here, at the beginning of the season. The 4-seam fastball that he throws, he leads with 33% of the time, sits at 96 miles an hour. Batters only 211 against it. It's really the sinker this year that's kind of been hurting him. And the funny thing is with Weathers' sinker, he only threw it 3% of the time in 2025. He got that up to 25% of the time so far here in 2026. But it's getting lit up. It's 411 batting average against this year, and last year the sinker had a 411 expected batting average against, and last year was a 532 expected batting average against on the sinker of Ryan Weathers. Once again, I'm not in love with that, but he does also offer a sweeper that, has been really good. Changeup, mixed bag there, but it was also mixed bag last year. So Weathers, as far as a priority, he may not be number 1 for me, but he's definitely got some interesting upside. And once again, Ryan Weathers, New York Yankees starting pitcher, 28% owned on Yahoo, gets the Angels on Tuesday. little bit of a different scenario with this next guy. I talked about the Yankees young tandem. Next up is Will Warren, obviously, once again, of the New York Yankees. Another young kid who's been great so far in the early going. 14 innings pitched for Will Warren so far, 14 strikeouts, a 3.07 ERA, a 130 whip, which is high. The thing with Warren is you may not be able to pick him up in a lot of spots because he is pitching on Monday. But Will Warren was solid last year. He wasn't, atrocious last year. There was some bright spots from the kid. I think he could still be fairly good. He's got the potential to be solid. And I'll just kind of read you off of some of his numbers here. Well, let's do the numbers from last year because I gave numbers from this year already. It was 33 starts last year from Warren, a 4.44 ERA, 162 innings, 171 strikeouts, and a 137 whip. Not blow you away great numbers, but there were a lot of bright spots for Warren. A lot of times we were streaming him in and out. So I'm not necessarily mad at a Will Warren pickup. I think I like Weathers a little bit more, and it's tough to get Warren. Let's kind of do this. Let's see who they are projected to go up against. And the next one is Kansas City after that. So interesting time for these young New York Yankee pitchers. Let's say like this: I don't think there's a lot of AL onlys or Warrens out there, but in those formats, I'm definitely grabbing him to start. Going forward, 47% owned on Yahoo. Warren is. Your 15s definitely. Your 12s is where it gets a little bit more sketchy. If your rotation's not great, maybe you throw Warren in there on the back end, right? But for time's sake, let's just keep things pushing because that's really I got for you on Will Warren. This next guy, though, Grant Holmes from the Atlanta Braves. He's been really good. Another guy who just had a lot of bright spots last year, and I like what he brings to the table. He's another guy. It's going to be difficult to get his exact next start as it comes here on Monday against Miami, which is in Atlanta. So I really like that one for Will Warren. For Grant Holmes, Will Warren, who we talked about last. So on the brain there a bit. But Grant Holmes, Atlanta Braves starting pitcher, once again, last 3 starts or first 3 starts of the season, 2.55 ERA, 1.08 whip, 17 innings pitched, 14 strikeouts. He's been super effective. So he's somebody that I'd honestly be looking to go out there and snag. Gets Miami again on Monday, which is a good start, but if you can't go out there and add him for that one, let's do the same thing we did. Let's see who he potentially have at the end of the week. That's a tough one. It's at Philly. Yeah, so if Holmes continues to rock and roll through this start here on Monday, there's a potential shot. I feel comfortable rolling him out there against Philly, but it's still not the most ideal matchup with Harper and Schwarber and them boys over there, especially Harper's been heating up a little bit. It's not an ideal going of things. But I will say this: Grant Holmes through his career so far, which has been 3 years, 31 starts, 51 games overall, 201 innings pitched. Once again, that 3.72 ERA. 207 strikeouts. So it was over that K per 9. It's a 1.26 whip. But the whip was really good. The whip has been really good this year, specifically for Holmes, the 107 whip and the 2.55 ERA. So with Holmes, he's probably one of the more exciting guys that I'm grabbing off the waiver wire. So we'll kind of just see how that plays out here for Grant Holmes. So I think you can go out there and snag him and kind of just feel comfortable for the start here if you get him on Monday. But after the Philly start, he gets the Nationals, so that's a little bit more of a comfy matchup. I'm in on some Grant Holmes this year. But with that being said, before we move on and finish strong, and talk about who have the White Sox called up and why do we need to know the name, Jeffrey Springs, and then we get into some bats and more coming up next. And all right, guys, I want to talk to you about my friends over at 5-Hour Energy. If you got a sweet tooth like I do, you know how tough it is to find that perfect treat without all the sugar. That's why the Confetti Craze 5-Hour Energy Shot brings that nostalgic flavor back in a whole new way. This is that classic taste you remember, but with a tasty caffeine boost and zero sugar. It's a quick and easy way to satisfy that sweet craving while keeping things simple and on the go. I've always loved birthday cake, but I can't be eating sweets, all day. It's gonna, put a little too much weight on there that none of us want. And this is gonna be the perfect alternative. Confetti Craze 5-Hour Energy Shots taste just like your birthday cake, vanilla and buttery flavors to let you be unapologetically extra and unstoppably energized. All cake, no sugar. You can have your cake and sip it too, minus any of that sugary guilt. I like how convenient it is, just a small portable shot that I can grab and go whenever I need a little pick me up. It's because it's really become my go-to when I want something sweet without going overboard. The funfetti flavor is back, on 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. Crack open that confetti craze 5-Hour Energy today. All right, guys, just wanted to say thank you to our everydayers and new listeners for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up and level and go ad-free. Baseball is back, and you can lock in by joining the Everydayers Club, which gets you ad-free episodes and access to our group chat on Discord. Tap the link in the show notes if you are interested in any of that stuff. But all right, guys, let's keep things pushing here, right? We talked about the Yankees tandem. We talked about Grant Holmes. Let's talk about who the White Sox have called up and starting pitcher Noah Schultz. Really exciting young prospect here for the White Sox, right? He's been one of the consensus, just top pitching prospects in baseball last couple of years now. He's the 46th overall prospect this year, according to MLB.com. Big, intimidating guy at 6'10", 240. He's got a big fastball, that comes out there. And, he gets to 99 at times, but he averages closer to like 95, 96. Has a nasty wipeout slider, and just kind of has to develop that third pitch. He does have a changeup, but it's not a great changeup. It's not a good changeup. It's just a changeup, right? The control, also another thing that Schultz kind of has to overcome a little bit. I'm a fan, though. I'm a fan of what he's done so far in his minor league career, which we're going to talk about here in a second. Had a rough 25, but in 24 for Noah Schultz, it was 23 starts, a 2.24 ERA, 88 innings, 115 strikeouts, batters at 196 against him, and the whip was an 0.98, and he was just as dominant, he's been just as dominant in the minors this year before he's at the call. 2 starts, 3 overall outings, a 1.29 ERA, 14 innings pitched, 19 strikeouts, and 0.89 whip. Noah Schultz has been absolutely dominant. I think we really need to go out there and add him. He's going to be hopefully really solid. It's going to be tough for him to win games in that White Sox lineup. But, we'll kind of just see how things play out for the young Noah Schultz. I think he's an absolute must-add at the moment. He is currently owned. Bear with me as I pull that back up. I did have it there, but I didn't read it. He is owned in 23% of Yahoo leagues. I would go out there and just take a chance on the kid and just see how things wind up, because I think he could be really exciting, and he's somebody I would love to roster in at least one spot. Yeah, so Noah Schultz, definitely a must-add. And then once again, just to reiterate, Noah Schultz got the top prospect pedigree. He's the number 46 prospect this year, but Yeah, last year he was even higher. He was number 16 prospect last year. Bear with me once. Yeah. So Noah Schultz, definitely somebody. I think we just add him for the sake. Top prospect, has the pedigree, has good stuff. Let's see where the wind takes him, because it could be to the moon, in some, realities, and it might just be this one. So I'm picking up Noah Schultz in any spot that I can just to see what happens next. Let's move on though. Let's talk about Mr. Jeffrey Springs, starting pitcher for the Athletics. Springs has been really, really good so far this year through his first 3 starts. And then he starts again on Tuesday, so we can almost get him in all formats again there too. Every start's been really good, especially the last one at the Yankees in the stadium. Yankees been one of the best teams in baseball, if not arguably the best hitting team in baseball so far. 7 inning, not best hitting team, but just overall one of the best teams. The bats haven't been, as good as we'd like, but they've been all right. Ben Rice been doing his thing out there. So 7 innings pitched at the Yankees last time for Springs. Win, 6 strikeouts, no earned runs, 0.43 whip. Still on a lineup that can go off again any night. That's a good outing. Tuesday, he gets the Rangers. I think he's a must-add for that one. Springs is only 33% owned on Yahoo. Once again, through his first 3 starts, 2 wins, 1.47 ERA, 0.76 whip, 18 innings, 15 strikeouts. Springs, 2, 3, 4 years ago, we were talking about him as one of arguably top 24, top 30 pitchers in baseball. He was really working on things, figure stuff out. Obviously, he's not that guy anymore after surgery and everything. But there's still a world where Springs is, an SP 4-5 type. And, things are playing out as such so far, because even in the start before the Yankees, he was against Houston, 6 innings, win, 1 earned run, 7 strikeouts, 0.5 whip. He was okay in his first one against Toronto, only a couple earned runs, 5.1 innings, 2 strikeouts wasn't great, and the whip was a little high, but the where Springs is now, I'm just pretty happy with it, and trust me, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining if I'm the Jeffrey Springs owner, and if I'm not, and he's available in my leagues, I'm at least picking him up for this Tuesday start, because there's a chance Springs has figured this stuff out, and he's kind of just back to being one of the better starting pitchers in baseball. I don't think that K per 9 ever gets to where it was, pre-injury, but he still could be really useful and somebody that we need to look into and potentially pick up in, formats where he's available, because 33% owned is definitely too low on a guy like Jeffrey Springs. But before we move on and we actually get into the bats and finish strong with names like Carter Jensen, Josh Bell, and more coming up next. And all right, guys, I need to talk to you about my friends over at FanDuel, right? Because the NBA playoffs are here, where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. And here's what I like about it, when it comes to, getting all this done on FanDuel, right? You can just bet $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. The app makes it easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. And during the playoffs, that extra insight really matters when you're looking for, or at stars, role players, and key moments. It just makes the entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. And you're going to head to FanDuel.com to get started today. FanDuel, play your game. And all right, guys, let's finish strong here with some bats. Let's talk about Carter Jensen. And if you're not familiar with the Royals catcher, he got in a little bit of trouble. He got a little bit of trouble at the beginning of the season, back a couple weeks ago. He had overslept, missed the game, put the Royals in a bad spot, but Salvi Perez in a bad spot, who wasn't ready or prepared to catch, and it was just tough goings of it. But since then, Jensen's rebounded nicely, couple multi-hit efforts, 3 home runs since then. He's, wait till he starts stealing a couple of bags here and there too. It's going to be interesting for a guy like Jensen. Right now on the season, numbers don't look great overall, but it's a 211 batting average, 6 runs, 4 homers, 7 RBIs. But he's been better. Let's just even do the last 2 weeks here. He has been, I don't want averages, I just want the regular numbers. We could even do that. He's just been pretty solid. Last 14 days for Jensen, all those 4 home runs have been in the last 14 days, 6 runs, 7 RBIs, and a 242 batting average. So just somebody that, let's just add him, see where it goes, especially at the catcher position. We've been getting some mixed bags so far. And in that Royals lineup, he's been hitting 5th of late. So I would go out there, kind of just snag him and, see where it goes. 34% owned once again for Carter Jensen, Kansas City Royals catcher. Let's move on to this next guy who it's funny to just still be talking about him on the waiver wire show because I feel like he's been a staple of the show for a few years now. It's Josh Bell, who goes back over to goes over to the Twins. He's hitting 286 on the season, surprisingly, with 12 runs, 3 homers, 12 RBIs. But that's what I say. We need to take advantages of this guys like this now because we don't know where it can end up because Bell is actually, a solid bat. So somebody I would be looking to add, you need a corner infielder, 15 mans, obviously onlys. Spots like that for Josh Bell, I think, make a lot of sense. But yeah, Josh Bell, 27% owned on Yahoo. I think if you need the power, you need the RBIs, stuff like that, he's not a bad ad. We kind of know who Josh Bell is, though. It's ebbs and flows, ups and downs a lot with him over his career. Maybe there's a fresh breath of life there over in Minnesota, but TBD. Let's move on to somebody I like a little bit better. Let's talk about Francisco Alvarez. So a catcher for the New York Mets. So we actually have 2 catchers on the show today. You don't always see that here. But Alvarez, man, kind of just living up to that potential hype that I think a lot of people talked about. And a lot of us were worried about, including myself, if it was going to come, to fruition, and it has so far. Through Alvarez's first 14 games, he's batting at 300, which is great. He is got 7 runs, 4 homers, 4 RBIs. You like to kind of just see that he's been moving and grooving of late. So we'll see how things wind up. But I would say add him now, 2 catcher leagues and a lonely spots like that. He is actually up to 40% owned on Yahoo, and that's over 8% jump in the last day here. So if Alvarez is available in any of those deeper formats, I'm not mad at it. I just kind of once again add him. You see where it goes. I think the power is going to turn around, and I truly, truly believe him hitting in the middle of that Mets lineup is going to lead to some really, really good production for him, especially when it comes to fantasy baseball purposes, obviously, because you want as many guys doing that as possible. Let's move on here. Let's do a Mickey Moniak of those Colorado Rockies. And it's funny. I think Matt may have even brought this up. Moniak was using the wrong bat for a little bit, and it's kind of thrown him off. I think he's still going to be really good. He's former number 1 pick. He's hitting 300 through the first 9 games of the year. He's got 6 runs, 5 homers, 9 RBIs. I like what he does. He does a little bit of everything. He can even steal a bag here or there. Playing in Coors, great spot. Somebody I just kind of had highly ranked coming into the season. to be honest with you guys. He's somebody I've just talked about. I've been talking about him for a long time. I said former first-round pick. That dates back 10 years ago, back to 2016. So Moniak's been around a while, and he's just got that nice power speed combo. He's second year with the Rockies. He had 270 last year, 24 homers and 9 steals. Over 434 at-bats, 135 games. I can't see why he couldn't do the same thing again if he somehow managed to stay healthy. So, Mickey Moniak is just, like I said, kind of just been flying under radars. I think almost even including his own for a moment. I think he maybe questioned himself and said, hey, listen, I can still get this done. I got this. At age 27, a bit of a later breakout in his career, but one of those that I kind of just think as long as he's in cores and hitting the way he hits, things should just kind of just work out for a Mickey Moniak type. But let's keep things pushing here to what is our potential last guy of the episode. It is Colt Keith of the Detroit Tigers. And listen, I love me some Colt Keith. He is just a tough one, young player, first, second, and third eligibility on Yahoo. When I say tough, it's because a lot of empty batting average so far, 345 batting average, 9 runs, 4 RBIs, no homers or steals. If I personally had to, put an idea of what's truly going on here with Colt Keith, it's he needs to get some power. He needs to get some power going. He needs to get some steals going for, fantasy purposes, what we do around here. If he's not doing that, I mean, the 9 runs and the 354 batting average are nice, but, somebody who has, hasn't been around for a little bit, it just kind of makes them feel almost significant in a way. So we'll kind of just see, how things go here for Mr. Colt Keith. But guys, I'm going to call things there. I appreciate it. Shout out to our everydayers and new listeners for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen of the day. And, just make sure you're subscribed and follow, Locked On Fantasy Baseball so you can get all the latest episodes and updates. For those of you on video, we send you over to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. And on the audio side of things, make sure your second listen is Locked On MLB. But guys, we appreciate it. Until next time. See ya.